Hello, and welcome to Imbalancing the Spectrum. I am your host, Jose. I've been debating all day what I was going to talk about today, and I wanted to keep it light because the holidays are coming up, but I realized that there's something in my mind that I just have to talk about, and it's the fact that sometimes, even with a strong support system, we can feel invisible, and other people don't perceive that feeling. So sometimes we feel the need to explain ourselves, and that explanation turns into an over explanation. We've talked about that before, and I think I made it sound easy. Like, don't over explain yourself. If they can accept it, well, then too bad. They or not accept it. If they don't comprehend you, they don't understand you or understand you, then they could just suck it. I make it sound that easy. But in reality, most people that we find ourselves over explaining ourselves to are people close to us, people that matter to us. I keep finding myself in this situation, and at the end of the day, I do tell myself if they don't get it, they don't get it. But it kind of gnaws at me in the moment, like a feeling of desire to be seen, to be understood, at least. If you can't understand me, at least try to understand me. And I do go out of my way to explain certain things. Like, I found myself in a situation today. Today, I had a conversation. At first, the conversation was very philosophical. Um, where did people learn to learn? How did knowledge become a thing? And the specific question I was given was, where did astrologers um, get their information from? How did they learn? So, because of the wording that was being put into that question, my answer was books. People went for books. And yeah, so back then, books weren't necessarily a thing. It was more parchments. And they're like, no, they didn't have books. They had parchments. I agreed to that. Okay, yeah, they had parchment, but same thing. They went and they read, and based on the information they gathered, they would put it to use and make their own observations. And they kept telling me, no, that's not what I mean. Where would they be able to get that information if it didn't exist? And it confused me. So we went on a spiral until they reworded the question. Uh, how did they learn to write? And I realized, okay, the question isn't how did they learn, it's how did they get to the point where people could share information with one another through writing. And, well, we talked about how before parchments, before writing was a thing, you had hieroglyphics, paintings on cavern walls, and numerology. Before numerology was even a thing, uh, who they asked me, who was the one to say, oh, math exists. Math is a thing that actually exists and we have to learn it. And I did bring up ancient, I believe I see ancient China. In fact, check me on this. But the abacus, it's this tool that they used as a calculator. And I don't know how to use it, but I do know that that's how they kept with things. But before that was invented, somebody grabbed rocks, and this was just me saying it as a theory. Maybe somebody grabbed rocks and grabbed one wrong, said, this is one. Okay, one. So, anyway, not gonna explain the whole conversation, but it led to different ways of thinking and different ways of learning, and how people face struggles with that. And I told them, like, it's like me and my ADD. In my school years, I was always told that I wasn't paying attention, but I got good grades on the test. I got okay grades in my homework. I got good grades in the test. So they would tell me that I wasn't paying attention in class. How was it possible for me to get good grades on a test? Well, while I was in class, teachers would speak, and yeah, my mind would drift off to different places. So I wouldn't pay attention in class. So when I did the homework, it was just little things here and there that I could remember. I've always been able to micro learn. And that's the thing I try to explain, micro learning. Because they said that I'm the type of person that when it comes to some stuff, I know everything about it. And when it comes to other things, I don't know anything. And they were telling me, it doesn't make sense to me how you could know so much about everything, but not about what's actually important. And I try to explain micro learning. Like, I'm no expert in one field, but I tend to grasp information from here and there, from different topics, different fields. And I know very, very little about the whole field. But the information I do have is what my brain retains. And it didn't make sense to them. They were saying, it's either you know or you don't know. Sometimes, and this is how I perceived it. This is not the words they used. But it made me feel like they were saying that sometimes I played dumb in certain things, and when it comes to a debate that, oh, I know everything about the topic at hand. And that to me doesn't make sense. Like, I know how my mind works. I know that I retain information in weird ways. Um, and as for learning, it has to be visual or hands on. That's why when I would do my homework, I would have to read the text over and over and over again. Otherwise, my brain wouldn't retain it. It got to the point where I believe my sixth grade science teacher was asking me how I was getting good grades. And I said, I don't know. I read the text, and while I'm doing the test, I see a picture of the text and what it says. And I asked her, I was 11 years old. I asked her, is that photographic memory? And she said, no, you don't have photographic memory. Photographic memory is remembering um, details, precise details, and um, that's not how you portray yourself, how you express yourself when it comes to learning. And she was right. After the test, I got good grades. On to the next subject. I would forget what I was taught. Like, for example, biology, mitosis. I got it when it was explained to me, when I had to learn it. But if you ask me about mitosis now, all I know or what my brain can remember is that it's cell division or cell multiplication. I may be wrong, but that's what my brain remembers. But anyway, so they were telling me that when they talk to me, they see me focused. They see me concentrated, and that I am able to articulate myself properly. And my first thought was, you don't know what's going on in this head. I'm trying to articulate myself properly by separating multiple ideas that I'm having at one time, trying to focus it into one thought. And I said, sometimes you may be thinking I'm focused, but sometimes my brain starts having multiple ideas or multiple discussions, or not discussions, conversations at the same time, where I drift off, where I drift away from the conversation and I stop paying attention. And then I come back and have to use context clues to figure out what they're talking about. And they're like, that doesn't make sense. And basically, I said, I've had a lot of practice throughout my life. This isn't something that happened overnight. Um, it's something that I've lived with since my childhood. Only then, I didn't know what it was called. I didn't know it had a name. And they tried to tell me that a person with ADD or ADHD are people who don't know how to focus, and they're in limbo, basically. They don't process information properly to be high functioning. And that's a misconcept that a lot of people have, um, that if you're high functioning, that means you're okay, that means you're healthy. But in reality, you can be high functioning and have autism, epilepsy, ADD, ADHD. It's all these mental health um, problems or difficulties. Um, they're invisible. That's why a lot of people say they're invisible illnesses, invisible diseases. Though I don't see them as a disease or an illness, it just happens to be the way our brain thinks. Epilepsy is a brain disorder. Um, and there are high functioning epileptic people, such as myself, but there are also lower functioning epileptic people, and I get that. Um, so I said, I'm not using it as an excuse. I'm just trying to explain. When I said I'm not using it as an excuse, the eye rolls came in. Oh my god, no way. This to me is very triggering. It happens a lot. Um, when somebody rolls their eyes, when I'm trying to explain why it is that I function a certain way, and I say that it's not an excuse because most people perceive it as an excuse. They don't have the knowledge, they don't have the overstanding to say, I know it's not an excuse, um, but I would like to know more about it. Instead, they go to eye roll or a weird gesture that's like, oh, yeah, right, yeah, okay, you're not using it as an excuse. Okay. You just want the attention, and that's why it's triggering. But when it comes to it, um, they're the ones that are being ignorant, and I get it. Certain people were taught a certain way, and they base their whole life on beliefs and information that was originally given to them, that with time as it passes by, there's more information to that pool, and they don't re-educate themselves. This is what I was saying. We need to re-educate ourselves every so often because new information is always coming in. ADD was basically ignored for the longest time. I pull up an article, and the article said that before 1986, ADD and ADHD were known as ADD. That's it. They were meshed together. And in the 1990s, they created three subtypes. So they took ADD and said there are three types of ADD. There's ADD without hyperactivity. There's ADD with hyperactivity. And there's combined ADD. Basically, what that means is a person can have ADD, be hyperactive or not, or have a mixture of being hyperactive and not. And if you look at it from a surface level, it makes sense. And that's what they did for the longest time. It wasn't until recently, I would say in the last decade, um, that people started talking about mental health. And the more people talked about it, with the internet being the way it is now, that you could share anything you want, more people started talking about what they were feeling, what they were experiencing, symptoms, signs, and specifically with people who uh, said they had ADD. A lot of the signs and symptoms made sense to me because I experienced them, but I didn't know what ADD was until back in 2014, maybe 2013. Uh, I was going with a guidance counselor, and they are certified therapists, or at least this person was a certified therapist that served as a guidance counselor. And I went and I talked, and one day in one of our sessions, they tell me, hey, I've been meaning to tell you this, and every week that you come in, I notice signs and symptoms that you may be experiencing ADD. I had no idea what that was. I just brushed it off. I was like, okay. Um, but it wasn't until later that, while I was on YouTube, I found a video where this chick was talking about ADD, ADHD, autism, uh, anxiety, all the health or mental health difficulties that one can experience. And when she was explaining ADD and ADHD, that's when it made sense to me. I was like, okay, I know what this is now, and I didn't realize it had a name, which the name is problematic. Attention deficit disorder. That, when you hear that, you think, oh, it's a person that has problem paying attention. Surface level. And that's how my earlier conversation, how they see it. It's a person who doesn't pay attention, and they have no clue what you're talking about because their brain doesn't process information, so that person needs a psychologist, and they need medication to get better. And that to me was kind of offensive. On behalf of everybody out there with ADD, um, but me being the person that I am, I was like, here's the thing, I take meds for epilepsy, but those same medication can be prescribed to lessen symptoms of ADD. If I miss a dose one day, I notice my ADD get real bad, and it goes into this spiral that just is unending thoughts. Like they're unending right now, but they get meshed with one another and I can't separate it, so it makes me um it gives me more of a challenge to actually express myself, to do certain tasks, basic tasks. I mean, I struggle with basic tasks throughout the day. I might be uh cleaning something, and then I go to the restroom and I look at my desk and I'm like, "Oh, I have to organize my desk." I start organizing my desk and I forgot that I was cleaning. Some people see this as forgetful. I've been labeled as forgetful a lot, and I am. But also, um, with ADD, your mind prioritizes what's in front of you, what you yourself are doing, or at least this is how it is for me. What I'm doing, what I'm seeing in the moment, and my mind goes, "Oh, you need to do that." Okay, I do it, I forget the rest. Um, but the more I tried to explain myself and how ADD works, and I even said, like, the guidance counselor, the therapist, um, the therapist that I went to a couple years ago, not the guidance counselor. The therapist that I went to a couple years ago, she mentioned this to me, and she said, "I see that you have symptoms of," she said, "possible symptoms of having ADD." And I said, "Yeah, that's something that I am unofficially diagnosed, but that's something that I worked through." When I mentioned this, they said, "I don't give a crap about what the therapist said. I'm telling you, you don't have it. You don't have ADD. You're high functioning. You know what you're doing. You're conscious. People with ADD aren't conscious." And again, it came off as offensive, not just to me, but to all people with ADD in general. And when I feel that way, I feel like I have to advocate not just for myself, but for other people with ADD or any other type of mental health difficulties. They brought up my epilepsy. They said, "You're high functioning, you're well. I've met people with epilepsy that aren't well, can't speak, can't interact. They don't even know you're there." And I'm like, I realize that there are people like that. And the more I have seizures, the stronger they get. Um, you could tell that I slur more and I know it's affecting my brain. The eye rolls came in. At that point, I ignored it. I was like, you're trying to bring my epilepsy in. I'm trying to explain to you that every time I do have strong convulsions, my brain is misfiring all these brain cells. So it does damage the brain little by little. This is what I've been told by doctors. Little by little, your brain is going to be damaged. But we can't predict how far that damage will go. This last time that I had this really strong seizure that they had to intubate me, after that, the first couple months were hard as fuck. I couldn't remember a lot from before the seizure and after. I would be doing something and I would try to remember what it is that I did before I started doing what I was doing, and I couldn't remember. That's how bad my memory got. It's gotten better, but it is because the seizure affected my memory. My doctors did say that my memory would come back at its own pace, and even now, I have difficulty remembering before the seizure, but I can remember after the seizure. And what I was trying to explain to them was that unfortunately, having seizures will damage the brain. That's all I was trying to explain. My communication skills, my speech, not communication skills, my speech, it has gotten better from what it was after that seizure, but I do find myself tripping over words in both English and Spanish, and I find myself pausing a lot, not just because of my ADD, but because sometimes I forget what I'm going to say. That's just because a lot of thoughts are coming in to the point where it gets a little bit difficult to separate that one thought I do want to express, and it gets lost in the mist of many thoughts. That's partially my ADD and partially my right temporal lobe being affected by these seizures. And that's where my seizures are focused at, my right temporal lobe. Which was explained to me that has to do with speech, memory, language, and many other aspects that have gotten better for me, but still, there's a couple slips here and there, and they're noticeable to me because I'm experiencing them, whereas others might perceive it as normal because they got used to it. At the beginning, it was, we're worried, we're really worried. You might not get your memory back, and that worries us. You might not be able to talk properly. like you used to, and that worries us. But now that it's back to um, that it's gotten better since that last seizure, um, it's like, okay, he's okay now. We don't have to worry about that anymore. And I'm still experiencing it. So, again, it makes me feel invisible when I try to explain something. And this is a thing that happens to me a lot. I explain how something works: ADD, epilepsy, how it affects the brain, how it affects your thought process, your speech, whatever. And they try to argue that that's not what it's supposed to be, that's not what it is. Because in their time, in their perception, it's something else. They were taught something else, and that's what it is. And I'm over here trying to re educate them, and it's a lost battle to the point where I'm like considering and just saying, okay, you think that that's the way it's supposed to be, that that's the way that ADD functions, that that's the way epilepsy functions, autism, whatever it may be. You think that's the way it is? Go read several articles, go check out books on the topic, and compare that to the information that you have right now, and then we could talk about it. Once you comprehend it, come talk to me about it. If you'd like to know even more, I could tell you what I know. I've educated myself on these topics because I was ignorant to them most of my life. And when I entered my adulthood, I was faced asking myself a lot of questions about myself. So I had to research certain things. And I would research one thing and it would lead me to another that would lead me to another. And that's how I learned a lot about myself and my mental health difficulties and my health conditions overall. Um, I don't use them as excuses. It's just the way my brain works, the way my body functions. I've had to adapt to my brain, my thoughts, my body. I've had to adapt myself. Before I was diagnosed with osteoporosis, I felt extreme pain and it was unbearable. And they wanted to give me medication. I said no because I'm prone to negative side effects. And a lot of the negative side effects were death, heart problems, um, misfigured jaw. And I said, no, I'm not gonna do that if it's gonna make things worse. Um, so I had to learn to adapt my body, and it took a long time to do it because my pains were so much that I just couldn't stand it. Now I have pain 24/7, but my mind has adapted to my body. Mind over matter, right? And I won't feel extreme pain unless I do something. whether it's cleaning, just standing, sitting for too long. Like I've been sitting here for a while and my lower back is starting to hurt. Um, but it's not to an unbearable point. Like the other night, it was freezing outside. It was super cold. And I'm inside, the heater's on, but I still feel the cold from outside. My bones feel it. And I was in so much pain. How do I deal with that? Well, sometimes I use ointments that help with pain. Heat pads. Heat pads help a lot. They help a lot. I have a electric blanket. I use that as well. So I learned to cope with the pain, and I've learned to adapt to my body. And when I try to explain my pains and um, everything that I feel within my body that could be causing me discomfort, um, they they tell me like, no, that's not right. It can't be that. No, this has been done by people around me, by my doctors, health providers in general, and it gets to the point where I'm alone, so I have to do the research myself. I don't know if I told you guys how I got diagnosed with epilepsy. Usually, you can't get the scan that they have to do for osteoporosis. I meant to say osteoporosis. You can't get that scan until you're older than 50 years old. And I wanted them to do it. They said no. I told my neurologist, the one that deals with my epilepsy, and uh, he told me that no, must be muscular pain to put some ice on it. And I said, it's just in general, my whole body aches, and I think it might be osteoporosis. I read the side effects, and it says that it can cause osteoporosis. And he said, that's only 0.0000001% chance that you're going to get osteoporosis. And I said, what if I'm that 0.00001%? They said no. As luck would have it, which I don't think it was luck at all, I think it was fated, that this pop up pop up health fair happened, and I wanted to go to it. But the reason I wanted to go was for my vision. I wanted to check out my vision. But when I entered, I remember seeing uh, the list, and it said osteoporosis and arthritis check. And I was like, okay, I want to go do that instead. And it was a long line, a lot of older people, and I felt like I was supposed to be there. But once I entered the room, they said, why are you here? You're young. You don't need to do this. And I said, can I just try? So I did it, and it's called a heel tap. They put like this machine, or you put your foot on a machine, and it scans for your C scores. You have T scores and you have C scores. Your T scores, as far as I know, are your levels of testosterone, and your C scores is what actually scratch that. I had to fact check myself real quick because as I was saying, I was thinking that's completely wrong. So when it comes to osteoporosis, it says a T score compares a person's bone density to that of a healthy young adult, while a C score compares their bone density to others of the same age and sex, meaning a T score is used to diagnose osteoporosis based on a standard young adult reference, while a C score can help identify potential secondary causes of bone loss not related to aging. So, I do remember that my C scores were low, and um, they told me that it was 2.5, and they asked me what's going on. Why do you have such a low score for a person your age? I was 21 going on 22, or I was already 22. No, I was 21 because I didn't get officially diagnosed until I was 22. So they asked me if I took medication. I said yeah, for epilepsy. And they said, oh yeah, that'll do it. So when they gave me my C scores, it was negative 2.5. And an average or a normal score for um, people 30 in their 30s is, I believe, a 0 to a 5. I would have to look at the actual graph. I think it's a 0 to a 5. So that's normal bone density. But if you're below a 0, if you're -1 or -2, from what I recall, you have osteopenia. If you're -2.5 to -5, you have osteoporosis, and you are prone to being fractured, your bones being fractured. So, the good thing about this health fair was that they gave me a slip with my C scores. I took it to my general physician. They said, oh, okay, we have to do a scan now. And the reason I walk you through all this is because I've expressed how my pains feel and how they felt in the past. And now I know of people going through those same pains that they're describing to me, and I've been very insistent on them trying to get a DEXA scan, but they won't do it for them because they're too young. And the more they explain their pains to me, it's like it really sounds like you're on the verge of osteoporosis. Because that's exactly the same symptoms, the same pains, feeling tired after doing literally nothing. Um, those are the symptoms I first experienced. And the more they explain it to me, the more they explain their pains, I feel like they're trying to over explain their pains, and I don't know if it's because they don't understand it or because they're trying to say, hey, I feel pains too. And that to me is like, I know everybody feels pain to a certain degree, whether it be a headache, uh, joint pain, muscle pain. Everybody feels some type of pain. It's normal. And because I've always said I can only do so much, then I have to take a break. Because if I push myself, I will end up hurting myself, and I have hurt myself in the past. When it came to my work, like, I don't work right now, but when I briefly did, I pushed myself and I hurt myself and I disregarded my health so that I could work. I wanted to work, therefore I tried. Um, they ended up firing me under the excuse that it was because of my osteoporosis, because I had hurt my wrist about a month in, I think, and a month later they used it as an excuse to fire me, when in reality it was a lot of drama was going on, and the person that was supposed to be my manager was talking bad about me, and she was saying to other people that I was retarded, and those coworkers started treating me like I was retarded. And I'm using the word retarded because that's the word she used. And anyway, um, it wasn't only that, there was drama upon drama upon drama. And, well, her being the friend, the boss's friend, who is the boss going to believe? Her or me? Well, yeah, obviously the friend. But anyway, when it comes to feeling invincible, feeling unheard, uh, a lot of the times it's because people are ignorant to the information that's out there. They're not willing to do their own research or to make their own observations or opinions. That's why I always tell y'all, uh, create your own opinion. And, um, well, I know I just said always, but I think it was just in the one episode. Um, but I do say create your own opinion, make your own observations, do research for yourself, and if you understand a subject, that is to say, you don't overstand it. If you understand it, that means you don't completely get it. So, if you don't get it, don't just stick to the information that you do have. Go do your research and get informed. Don't just talk out of your ass. Well, that I talk about my ass all the time. Um, but um, what was I gonna say? Yeah, just basically get informed and don't talk about a topic with outdated information. Update your information. Re-educate yourself. We have to do that all the time. I do it all the time. What I thought I knew about epilepsy when I was 10 years old, I had to relearn it when I was 18, and I had to relearn it again. And every time something else pops up for me, I re-educate myself because there's information coming into the pool constantly, so they're updating the information. And the more they get updates, the more it makes sense to me. Compared to, oh, you might have hit your head and that's what caused you to have epilepsy. But now there's more information to different causes, and it makes more sense to me. What doesn't make sense to me is that just because I am me and I'm giving you information on whatever topic it may be, that you're gonna decide to neglect that information that I'm giving you, and you're gonna be like, oh, that's not true. You're making that up. No, like, I've done the research, but I'm just informing you what I've learned. And if you're neglecting that information, you're neglecting me because it affects me directly. I am the one experiencing my health issues. I'm the one experiencing mental health difficulties. And I decided to use the word difficulties instead of illness or disorder because I don't like those words. They don't align with me. Difficulties is still iffy, but it kind of makes sense to me because when it comes to mental health, everybody struggles with something, so it's difficult. But that being said, people need to educate themselves and before they build an opinion on to who you are as a person, because that's what's happened to me. They label me as lazy, argumentative. They think I argue too much when I'm just being opinionated about something that I learned, something that my brain retained information from. So they're not seeing all of me. Sometimes people around you will overstand you intellectually, mentally, but they won't overstand you emotionally or behaviorally. And that's okay. And the other way around, someone might overstand you emotionally and behaviorally, but they won't overstand you intellectually or mentally. It's really kind of a toss-up. So that's why you have to find the people that do get you. Like I was saying last time, that person that you don't have to explain anything to, they just get you because they know you. Uh, all that being said, I feel like I've gone in circles multiple times and tried to get my point across. But that being said, this doesn't only pertain to people with illnesses and um, mental health difficulties. It also pertains with people when it comes to gender, sexual orientation, romantic orientation, behaviorism, the way somebody behaves. Um, it has to do with everything. Someone being Mexican American, what race they are, race, ethnicity, nationality, it all has to do with that uh, culture as well, religion. If you don't educate yourself thoroughly on everything, you're gonna have biased opinions all the time. And I guess that's where I was getting at. Us, as a society, we have to adapt ourselves, become more unbiased, because when we are biased, we create a friction and we segregate people or diminish a person's value without realizing it. And when it comes to uh, culture, gender, race, nationality, different people create different opinions, biased opinions, based on what they were taught, what they believe in, when in reality, if you say, okay, let me take a look at Indian culture, Mexican culture, black culture, Asian culture. Let me take a look. What's going on over there? And you learn a little bit. You don't have to learn the whole culture. Just learn a little bit and you'll find yourself understanding another person for who they are based on their race because you learned a little bit about their culture or based on their ethnicity, not race. Race is color. Uh, like I'm Mexican, but my race is white because I'm not brown, but I'm not white either. So that's what they classify me as. They classifies by me as Caucasian, um, which I didn't get at first because I didn't know the difference between race and ethnicity, and I thought that ethnicity um, had to do with where your nationality, or I thought that race had to do with where your nationality came from, and no, that's not it at all. Like, ethnicities? How many ethnicities are there that I could recall? Hold on, okay. Just drinking some water. So, I'm looking up a list of ethnicities just to give you the difference. So, ethnicities we have American Indian or Alaska Native. We have Asian, we have African American or Black, which I'll dive into that in a bit. I don't agree with saying African American or Black because Black is race based on your complexion. You can be Asian and be Black. You can be Indian and be Black. You could be Hispanic and be Black. We have Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander. We have white, Hispanic, or Latino, which white shouldn't even be in the ethnicity list. Um, Irish, Polish, Ghanaian. That's just some of the uh, the ethnicities that were provided by Google. So let's look up race. So this is why a lot of us probably still think that race and ethnicity are basically the same thing because the race list provided by the government website is American Indian, Alaska Native, Asian, Black or African American, Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander, and white. So the thing is, what's the difference, right? Race is based on your appearance, your physical traits. So, yes, you can have Asian race, um, or sorry, you can be Asian and be classified as Black, and you can be also classified as white because Asian is where your roots come from. In this race list, I do not see Hispanic, I do not see Latino. So that's why, and it's not supposed to be on that list at all. But it is in the ethnicity list, Hispanic or Latino. And when it comes to specifically Hispanic or Latino, same thing. You can have white features, Black features, Asian features. For the longest time, in my high school, people thought I was Asian. They didn't know I I'm Hispanic. I remember my PE teacher, who was also my health teacher my sophomore year. Um, she, when I was in her health class, we were sat in groups, and um, in the group that I was sitting with, we all spoke Spanish except for uh, one guy, and I remember her going, "Wait, you speak Spanish?" And she said, "I thought you're Asian." And everybody at the table, I remember going, "No, he's Mexican." And I was like, "Yeah, I speak Spanish." But everybody was so upset about it. And I was just like, I guess she got confused. Um, because especially back then, I had more Asian almond eyes. I look at myself now and I'm like, I don't see Asian anymore. I see Middle Eastern, which I did my ancestry, by the way, and I learned a lot. Um, but yeah, race is strictly based on your physical traits. And black, I know it can be an empowering word now, but I don't think anybody should be classified as black. Black is a pigment, it is a color, it is not a complexion. Um, if anything, brown. There's different shades of brown. My dad, he's brown, and in the summer, he gets real brown, real dark brown, to the point you will think that he's quote unquote black. And I've actually told him this once, and he got upset. But the reason he got upset was that I didn't recognize him. I remember being in the hospital and I didn't recognize him. I was like, who is that over there? It was my dad. And I told him, I thought you were a black guy coming into my room. It's like, you don't recognize your own father? Um, but yeah, like people, and now we're stuck on a tangent about race and ethnicity, my bad. But yeah, people use black, and that's fine because they've taken back the word and made it empowering. Um, African American. African American is used to say that you come from African roots. Same thing as Mexican American, French American, German American. But this is just my opinion. I'm not saying it's fact. But over time, don't you think the line kind of blurs to the point where you say, I'm not African American, I'm not Mexican American, because my culture is American. It's not African, it's not Mexican. All I know is my American culture. Like, you don't hear white people say, oh, we're English American. You don't hear them say that. Their roots come from England. Um, or European American. You don't hear them say that. So that's why it's an unpopular opinion. But I do think that the line gets blurred after generations of not being in contact with your roots. We all have roots all over the place. And it's something that we just live with. That the not being in touch with our roots. Um, I grew up in a Mexican household. I know what Mexican culture is like, but I won't say it's the same thing as it is in Mexico. Mexico would be way different. I grew up with a Mexican American culture, meaning my family mixed Mexican culture with the American culture. But anyway, I digress. And as for race and ethnicity, I hope it made sense that race is based on physical attributes and complexion, whereas your ethnicity tells you your roots. And like me, Hispanic or Latino, my roots come from Mexico, and that's why I'm Hispanic or Latino, however you want to call it. And I know there's a difference between those two. And if I remember correctly, Latino are people who come from Latin rooted languages. So technically, I know Spanish is like a big one, but technically, people who speak Portuguese, people in Brazil, they're Latinos. South, back in South America, they're Latinos. Um, People who are Italian, they're not classified as Latinos, but they are Latinos. French, they're not classified as Latinos, but they're Latinos because they, their language are Latin rooted. And when you think Latin root, most people think Spanish. That's why. But anyway, as for ethnicity, it's based on our roots. You could be, um, you have Irish ethnicity but be born here. Asian ethnicity but you're born here. Um, as for nationality is the place you were born. So if you're born in Mexico, your nationality is Mexican. If you're born in the United States, your nationality is American, quote unquote American. Why do I say quote unquote? I don't know how many of you know that Mexico's full and official name is United States, Mexican United States. That's why I say quote unquote American, because this is North America, Canada, United States, uh, Mexico, and as for South America, Central America, they're Americas too, Americans too. But see, it kind of comes back to what I originally was talking, which was um, people tend to label people or not label, create an idea of what people are or what they're meant to be or supposed to be. And in their mind, they forget, like, oh, those people are American too. Um, because they've classified, oh, American means people in the United States and only from the United States. No, ma'am. That's not how it works. There should be another word for a nationality for people of the United States. and I can't come up with one because every time I've tried to, it sounds weird. Because United States is just a title. United States of America. Um, just like Mexico. The Mexican United States. So if you come up with a good name that you could give the nationality for people born in the United States, put it in the comments. I want to find out what you come up with. What I came up with was United Station, which doesn't even make sense. United Statian? It just doesn't make sense. But if you find something that does make sense, let me know. But yeah, if you base your perception based on what was taught to you or the very little information that you have, I dare you to go inform yourself and create an unbiased perception and opinion about whatever it is that we're talking about, whether it be mental health, health issues, illnesses. There's a lot of stigma around illnesses and diseases. Especially when it comes to STDs. A lot of people are misinformed and they create biased opinions about a person because they're not well informed. Go inform yourself. The STD talk will be for a later episode. But yeah, just in general, the are you or aren't you thing is getting kind of tiresome for me. Or it's not even are you or aren't you anymore, it's you're not the way you think you are. You're not that way. You can't be that way. And they try to push it onto me and I'm like, I know who I am. I had to go on a journey of self-discovery to find out who I am and what I am. In order for you to tell me I'm not, I don't think so. That's why it's a triggering subject for me. Okay. It's a triggering subject for me because of the way I felt throughout my life, and when I finally know who I am and why things happen to me the way they happen to me, when it comes to my health, when it comes to my mental process, it all makes sense to me. And I try to share that information with you, but you're not liking it. Well, not much I could do. Just wish I could be like, stay out of that lane. If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. We're not going to talk about it, but don't bring up the conversation and expect me not to try to inform you why it is that I process things the way I do, the way I think I do, the way I behave. And this is strictly speaking to people close to us, people we care about. Because that's the people I find myself over explaining myself to. If it's a stranger, like, I don't give a shit if you think I am or not. Like, no, that go go get a Starbucks and take a walk around the park. Go pet a goat, whatever it is you do, go do it. Instead of putting your focus on me. So it's strictly when it comes to people that we care about. I'm slowly learning not to over explain myself. And sometimes it comes off as rude the way I say it. And the way I say things is like, well, if you don't get it, you're never going to get it. You're never going to overstand me. And I'm okay with that. It comes off as offensive. It's not meant to, but people perceive differently. And yeah. Well, I think I've vented to you guys quite for a bit. I think it's enough venting and ranting. So yeah, you guys let me know what you think about this. We could further this conversation if you like. Leave comments. Send me questions. You know how to contact me on my Instagram.pod, or send me emails at uh what no. See, I had a lot of in my head to the point where I lost my train of thought. That's what I was talking about earlier. Anyway, you could send me emails to inbalancingthespectrum.podcast@gmail.com. Here you could send me questions, ask me for advice, comment on certain topics that we've touched that you would like to discuss further. Do that. Hit the notification button so you get notified when a new episode drops. But until then, I hope you guys have wonderful holidays and stay safe, be safe. But remember that we are all living on a spectrum. Thank you.